This meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. Previous to the meeting tonight, Council did have an executive session on a legal matter. The first item on the agenda is the swearing in of fire police. Mr. Carroll, if you could come up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what I had on the agenda for tonight was the swearing in of a new fire police officer we had gotten a month or two back. And, that was unfortunately delayed, so I'd like tonight to do that.
Certainly.
Okay.
Mayor?
Mayor Aronson?
Mr. Ashton, if you could come forward.
All right, if you would raise your right hand and put your left on the Bible and repeat after me. I, Joseph Ashton,
I, Joseph Ashton,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and
and
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is manager matters. Ms. Checo?
Okay. First item is to consider 701 Jones Street financial security release in the amount of $44,276. In your meeting materials, there is the recommendation from Gilmore and Associates that has inspected the site. If you're so inclined, I would ask for a motion this evening to approve the release in the amount noted.
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is to consider the resignation of a board member of the Friends of Conshy Parks. As designated in the bylaws for the Friends of Conshy Parks, Borough Council has to approve the resignation and also approve the appointment of board members. Cindy King Webb has expressed her resignation in writing, which you have for reference. I'm asking that this evening, if you're so inclined, that you make a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is to consider the appointment of a board member to the Friends of Conshy Parks. Since Cindy King Webb has resigned, there is a vacancy. Sarah Aronson, who you have met and interviewed previously, has expressed her interest, and she has finalized and completed the application process. I'm asking this evening, if you are so inclined, to make a motion to appoint Sarah to serve for the remainder of Cindy's term until November of 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is to consider recognizing a long-term resident who is reaching the age of 100 years old. We were contacted by the daughter of Margaret Harris, and she was formally nominated, and she will be turning 100 years old on September 9th. So Margaret has spent a significant portion of her life, which is now more than 25 years, as a resident of the borough. She lived on West First Avenue for many years, where she and her husband raised their 4 children. She's now living with her daughter and her granddaughter at East 8th Avenue. I think when we put this process in place, it's for this very reason. So what I'm asking for this evening is that you accept the nomination that's been made, and that you allow administration to draft a proclamation, which would be read at the voting meeting in September. We did supply a sample proclamation for your review.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Next item is to consider approving the borough's 2020 minimum municipal obligations as required by Act 205. This is an annual requirement, again, per Act 205. In your meeting materials were the actual obligations per pension plan. The non-uniform pension plan totals $149,146. The police pension plan totals $667,237, and the fire pension plan obligation would be $3,110 for fiscal year 2020. These are built into your proposed budget already. Per Act 205, again, we need to do a formal vote and approval by September 30th of every year. So you'll see these numbers again as you're reviewing your budget for 2020. But these are for your review this evening. They will be on the agenda next on September 18th for a vote. Are there any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is to consider approving the adoption of a parental leave policy for full-time non-union represented employees, which would be effective January 1st of 2020. We previously reviewed this and discussed it and reviewed the stipulations that were laid out. Again, we pulled information from Montgomery County, who adopted a similar policy at the beginning of 2019. This has been reviewed by our labor attorney to ensure that we are meeting stipulation of FMLA and any other human resources law. The stipulations of the policy are the following: that they would apply only to parental leave to care for a newborn or newly adopted child or legal guardianship. The Family and Medical Leave Act gives workers 12 weeks of unpaid leave. The proposed policy would provide eligible employees with 6 weeks of paid leave and the option to take the remaining 6 weeks of FMLA unpaid. Per the borough's FMLA policy, there is a stipulation that the employee has to use any accrued vacation, sick days, or other unused PTO as any part of that 12-week leave. So the way it would work is that the employee would first utilize the available 6 weeks paid, and then if the employee chooses to utilize the remaining 6 weeks of FMLA, they would first expend their PTO, and then they'd have the option to extend the remainder of their FMLA for the 12-week period under unpaid. Similar to the FMLA, the policy would apply to employees who have been employed for at least 12 months, have worked at least 1,250 hours. It does not allow for intermittent leave. It cannot begin, the use of the policy cannot begin until after the birth of the child, adoption, foster care placement, etc. And to be eligible for the benefit, the employee must plan on returning to work upon ending the leave. So the only thing to keep in mind is that there is a slight fiscal impact to this. The cost will vary based on the number of employees that potentially might need to use it. The major costs will include the need for either hiring of a temp position while the employee is out, or need to provide additional compensation to a current employee for taking over the additional job responsibility while the employee is out on leave. But the way I have built this into the 2020 budget, should you approve it, is that it would be under your contingency line under contributions, so you'd have a placeholder of $25,000. But it would be, again, something that is annually built into your budget. Again, you could not use it at all in the course of 1 year. So the recommended action is that you approve the adoption of the paid parental leave policy. It would be effective January 1st, 2020. Again, it mimics closely the policy that was adopted by Montgomery County. And additionally, I believe that as a borough, that the benefits associated with the adoption of this policy greatly outweigh the potential cost. The Borough of Conshohocken should adopt the policy to illustrate that the labor force participation, better health outcomes for children are paramount to our municipality. So again, this is a discussion point for this evening. It will be again on your agenda in 2 weeks for a potential vote. And again, this would be going into effect January 1st of 2020. Any questions or concerns at this time? Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda, again, is a discussion point. The Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement System announced in May of 2019 that they would be changing all the retirement plans to the new IRS-approved plan documents. So this is an administrative item. We actually jumped on a conference call with the PMRS staff, which is the entity that manages the non-uniform pension plan, and we've reviewed all of our current plan documents. There were no changes made to the current plan, so this is not an item where we're looking at the pension plan and trying to make changes. The pension plan and the stipulations of the plan are remaining the same. This is literally taking an old document form and making it a new document form. But there's a process that we need to go through in order to do that. So we have the new plan document in hand. You had it in your meeting materials. Our legal counsel has it as well for review. We now need to place the new plan document on an agenda for advertisement. So it actually needs to be adopted by ordinance. So we first have to advertise, and then we'll need to approve. So once it's advertised, which is what will be on the agenda on the 18th, the ordinance will then be placed on the next applicable agenda for approval. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to have the actual plan document in front of you and the old pension document so you could review them side by side, give you some assurances that legal counsel and administration have reviewed the documents. We did go item by item, so it was kind of eye-opening in terms of how the pension document and plan itself was constructed. But I think that the main points of the plan are solid. And I don't see a need to change anything at this point. So again, this is an administrative item. It is for discussion this evening. If you have any questions over the next 2 weeks, please let me know. And then it will be on your agenda on September 18th for approval to advertise the ordinance, which would then allow for the adoption of the new plan.
Okay.
Okay. The next item is to consider approving Resolution 2019-20, which would authorize the sale of a dump truck through Municipid. We had placed a 1997 dump truck on Municipid for 3 cycles already, and the bids have not met the previously approved $5,000 reserve price, so we've been unable to sell it. So what I'm requesting this evening is that we approve a new resolution, which would decrease the reserve price to $3,500, so we can attempt to make some money back on that vehicle, but also remove it from our possession and move on. So if you are so inclined this evening, I would be asking for a motion to approve Resolution 2019-20, which would authorize the sale of a dump truck through
I'll make
Municipid.
that motion.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion
The Fire
carries.
Academy, maybe they'll trade us for some school again?
For
Give it to the
dump
Fire
truck.
Academy, they need a dump truck down
Well, I
there?
think that okay. There was interest, Bob, it just, we didn't hit that reserve
I
number,
hear
so. Bob, you just tired of hearing me talk? So the next item on the agenda is to consider awarding the 2019 Liquid Fuels Project contract. We are recommending the awarding of the road program to Berg Construction LLC. The project is in the amount of $239,862.05. So just as a reminder, the scope of work includes work being done at East 8th Avenue between Wells and Jones Streets. It's milling, paving, base repair, etc. The work is critical at this point. The bids did come in over what you had previously approved. The amount exceeds the allocation, again, previously approved by $34,043.33. However, just to give you an idea, what was budgeted this year in liquid fuels was $429,440. So you are within what you budgeted in your approved budget for 2019. It's just we had previously asked for an amount for you to approve, and the bids came in higher. So for this evening, I'm asking for a motion to award the 2019 liquid fuels project contract to Berg Construction LLC in the amount of $239,862.05. Karen, am I missing anything on that? Oh, okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion
Is it
carries.
Berg, you say, how you spell
It's
it?
URG?
BERG Construction LLC.
And where are they from?
Morgantown?
Morgantown, PA.
And we checked them out, we did all their back.
Yes, I haven't personally worked with them before, but I did contact other people in our company who have worked with them, and they recommended them, so I feel comfortable recommending that you guys award the contract for that.
And this is the first time they've worked in Conshohocken, to our knowledge?
To our knowledge.
To our knowledge, yes.
You better do a good job.
The bids were significantly.
So just the next bid was $393,509. So significant difference.
Okay.
So that's
How did we underestimate that by that much money?
By $30,000?
Well, 30,000 seems reasonable, but when you look at the other bids that come in, how?
Well, I think across the board in general, municipalities are dealing with high bids. So if you look at the RFP that came in, the submissions that came in for the flooring project at Community Center, you range from 54,000 all the way up to 115,000. So it's a nature of the bidding process at this point.
So the economy's so good, if you're bidding the job, and you don't need it, you bid it high.
Right.
Okay, so that's what you're getting high bids because everybody's so busy, and if you get the job, you're gonna
You're
make
gonna
money
make a
and you'll get it done, but that's what's going on. So this is the worst time to bid jobs right now because the economy's so good.
Okay.
If you're not busy and you don't have work, there's something wrong with your company, but, I mean, it's really busy up. The economy is terrific. In my end.
You're right. It makes sense.
Said that before, too.
Okay, we have a motion, we're good to go then. The next item on the agenda is to consider awarding a bid for the flooring replacement at the community center. This was bid out multiple times. This round of bidding, we actually received 3 submissions. We've received a submission in the amount of $51,455. We've received a submission in the amount of $61,710, and the third submission came in at $112,450. So again, you see the wide range. What I'm asking for tonight is that you approve the RFP, that you make a motion to award the 2019 Community Center flooring project to Joseph Del Buono, Inc. in the amount of $51,455.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
And just as a stipulation so that you are aware, what is budgeted in the capital budget is $54,000, so this came in under what you had budgeted.
So how many bids did we get?
3 total,
And what were the prices?
51,455, 61,710, 112,450.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not by mine.
Okay. I know Lauren is excited for her new flooring.
And we are excited for her. It is
The
so
next-
needed.
The next item on the agenda is a discussion point. We received a request from Mr. Tierney regarding a banner for advertisement of Restaurant Week and the Beer Festival. What he contacted us about was placing a banner on the fencing around the Sora West construction site, which is somewhat unusual because it's not our property. So what he was asking from our perspective is if there was any zoning requirements as it related to the banners. There is no provision for the banner signs in the SP4 district, so since it is not a banner, however, for what is going on at Sora, since we can't regulate what potentially he's requesting from a zoning perspective. The question is from a public perspective, since the first ward is already being impacted so much by that construction, and we had an individual here previously regarding the signage for the parking. We'll communicate with Keystone just from a public and a safety and a communication perspective, whether or not he makes the request to Keystone Property Group or not. I think it's important that we, as the borough, because we are the ones that are getting the concerns and the complaints, would communicate to Keystone Property Group if this is something you support. So there's no motion needed because there's really no action on our part, but I thought it was important enough to bring it to your attention as to if you have a take, and you can tell me that you have no take, it's not our obligation to have a decision, but do you have any input on whether or not you think it would be appropriate for there to be a large banner sign on the fencing around a major construction project that was advertising events that are non-borough and non-Keystone property events?
So I have a question on, a resident asked me, on the beer
The beer
thing.
festival?
Yeah, the
Okay.
beer festival. Who gets the most profit out of that?
It's a Rotary event.
Okay?
Um,
He might have called you. I don't know, if somebody called you about it? That
I
wanted
didn't
some
get
info-
I didn't receive a personal
Okay.
phone call, but
So the Rotary, right?
the Rotary is the applicant. So it's a Rotary event. They come in, they submit their application. We actually bring them in for an operations meeting from an administrative perspective. We do not meet with Mr. Tierney, if that's what you're asking
No,
me. He's
no, he
not
didn't
on
ask-
the
he just-
application.
He just wanted to know where those proceeds go.
From my understanding, because it's not a borough event, the proceeds are going to the Rotary Club.
And what
Um,
Rotary is that?
It's
Conshohocken, Plymouth.
Conshohocken,
Is it the
Plymouth
Con-
White Marsh Rotary.
Plymouth White Marsh Rotary?
Conshohocken, Plymouth, White Marsh.
Okay.
And then the Rotary decides what
What charity to give it to.
charities or what.
Right. And what Mr. Tierney makes, you would have to ask Rotary.
Right. He takes an operator's fee, I believe, because he organizes parts of it.
Now, the Tierney's name never come up. He just wanted to know what the proceeds went to. That's all.
Right, so it's a Rotary event. It's my understanding that Rotary they utilize their funds to, help other organizations, to
Yes.
help
I know
other
what
charities.
Rotary is.
Smiles
Right.
for Guatemala, I think
Rotary
Bob,
is
that's
what?
They're
one of
the-
their big.
They're the
Smiles for
applicant, they're the ones
Guatemala
that are
is one
making
of the
the money.
Rotary's big funds
Okay,
that they support. They send doctors and support staff
okay.
to do the cleft palate surgery.
If he has any more questions, I'll tell him to call you.
Tell them to call me.
So I think the bigger issue is we used to have a corner piece of property that was kind of the entry point.
Right,
for
that we
the borough,
owned,
that we
right.
owned, and we were able to allow people to
Signs up.
Right, they were able
put
to
signs up
advertise there.
and acknowledge the events. Since we don't have that piece of property anymore, I think the bigger question is there another place in the borough that we would be able to provide that for these events? You can't do banners across the streets anymore.
Right.
So, what does that look like?
And I guess I feel it's private property that belongs to Sora, and if they're gonna lend their space to something else, are they gonna charge a fee if it's like the restaurant rally, or if it's a fee for the restaurant week just benefits the businesses, but the beer festival would benefit, that's a charity.
But I think
So-
that should be up to the Rotary and Brian Tierney to go to Keystone if they want to do that and not involve us. What do we have, why do we want to have anything?
Well, I agree. I mean, our response back was that, because once we looked into whether or not there was a zoning issue and there wasn't, then from a borough perspective, it's not really our call to make.
No.
But in case I was then contacted, which the likelihood of that happening is high,
Right.
I had an opportunity to discuss it with you this evening, so I'm taking it.
They should go to Keystone.
I wouldn't encourage it.
Right, and I think that's my point, is what if every business decides they just want to put banners up then?
Exactly.
For every charity that they're involved with, that
In my
that could
opinion,
look really
that corner,
tacky.
that corner was horrible, putting all
Right.
that stuff on the entrance
Right.
of our town.
Right,
It looks like clotheslines going across with all kinds of signs on them.
Half the time they're
And the social media today and all the stuff out, and Why,
We
the
could end-
advertisement should be enough. I mean, do we
We
have to
could end
post
up with
signs?
a lot of things that
Don't.
no one would want up.
Right, that's my concern.
Not that I don't think Keystone isn't, they would be responsible, but
Be aware
still.
of it too.
I would say that's a no.
But if we let them,
They encourage it, so at this
Yeah.
point, all we can do is offer what our.
Right, I just wanted to,
Right.
it's just discussion, there's no vote.
Right.
I just, if I'm contacted, I know kind of what your take is on it. Okay, I'm good. Thank you. Quickly on the agenda, just for, under legal matters, all, the update on Seven Tower Bridge, the discussion on the land development status and the review and the approval of the agreements, all of those items this evening are tabled. I will inform council when the next available opportunity is, once we have communicated with Seven Tower and the Oliver Tyrone Pulver Corporation in terms of when they are ready for us to consider their agreements. Okay, so for the record, they're all tabled. Mr. Sokolowski, if you want to come up and just briefly talk about the trees, or are we?
Mr. Tree Man's here,
yeah.
Tim.
I can just do it quickly. The EAC along with the Borough wants to do the Bear Ruth tree program again. Last time they did 15 at the B field. This time I think they're asking for 25. The prices changed a little bit after 9 or 10. They want $90 per tree rather than $50 per tree. It would come out to about $1,700 in total. They would all be planted in Suffolk Park. They did a preliminary sketch of where they want to put them in Suffolk Park, but it's not finalized. We don't have any issues with it. Mike Maxwell's working with them in order to do it. It is a little bit more than what they did last time, but we do have the money to pay for it. We also have a lot of trees that have been recently taken down at Southwood Park, the Ashbourne problem, and then a couple of trees got hit by lightning. So I don't think it would be a bad idea to start replenishing that area.
Is the idea that we would try and create a canopy near the playground area and not start planting trees in some of the other field space?
Tim's here from the EAC.
Yeah.
That is part of the initial.
That would be great.
Setup that he had showed me, that some of it is part of it. We might have to do different things with that. Some of the bearwood trees are pretty small to keep them next to the playground. I don't know. We'll have a discussion on that. But there are other areas in Southwood Park that could definitely use it.
So that discussion will come back to council, right? Before you go plant the trees?
No.
Why not?
Because it won't.
I mean, I like to know where the trees are going.
Well, we can show you where they're gonna go, but
All right.
the trees have to be ordered
Yeah.
by the 19th, which means we have to go through the application process, how many we want. Your next meeting is the day before that. We wouldn't be able to get the application to whom we need to get.
So-
until the 19th.
So in essence, they want the authorization to order the trees, and Bob, we can still look at where they're going to get planted.
Right.
We'll have
You
time.
will see them, I mean, adjusting where they go, I mean, I don't think that's an issue at all. But will we do a formal presentation, if you want?
No, it'd be nice just to let us know,
Well, I think
a
what
little
might,
sketch or something, where they're going, or,
Sure, we do have, like I
Yeah.
said, we do have, he does, Tim. that's-
Tim, do you wanna come up?
He does have an initiative.
go ahead,
Tim.
Tim.
Can we do those little ones up above, like we talked? Remember the top of Seventh? Can we put the smaller trees in there? Or just a couple?
Well,
not a
let's see
lot?
what Tim has.
Tim, can you just
Go ahead.
lay out
Okay.
what your thoughts are?
So this happened, we just got it just came out, the application on Thursday, which gave us very little time because the increase meant they had to do a lot more meetings to try to make them still affordable.
Okay.
They had to adjust things. So we thought we'd have a lot more time and be able to have a longer deliberation process. But, so I asked Mike Maxwell for his recommendations on areas as a starting point. And because we don't really have a lot of time to, like, a long time to plan it, I wanted to avoid anything that might cause issues with the neighbors. Like, I thought it would be great to have trees up here for shading cars and whatnot, but I don't want to do that without having a neighborhood meeting to get people's concerns so they don't get upset about us putting trees that block views into the park, something like that. I don't want to, like, it's better to, like, keep everybody happy. So I wanted to focus on areas that we can do some more down the road. So one area would be to put some in these gaps to help shade the playground and the ball field.
So
basketball.
That's
But
like the top of the
also-
hill?
Yeah, the top of the hill.
Okay.
And we'd have to, there's a variety of trees to select from medium, small, medium, large, in size. And so we have to just look into making sure that they do not overhang the play equipment. Just
Right.
like Mike had told me, so they would be selected so that they don't overhang the play equipment but still provide shade. And then also are not in the way of where people like to sit and take fireworks. Judy on our team was making it very clear about like where everybody is. And so we would, they don't want to like look up into the
Trees.
their view.
Great.
So we would put enough in there to create shade, and we could also extend it up into where there's some missing in here. And then this area was a really like good, has a lot of views from the playground, from the walking trails, and there's a swale in here which would be really great for some of the native service berries. It's a little smaller tree, and it's one of the first to flower in the spring. And there's a slope, and you could really emphasize kind of the feel of that slope. That's this area here. And so we have some cherries that are down here that are dying and that have to get taken out.
Okay.
And it's a wet area, so we can put a sycamore in there. And then up in the hill, we could put like an oak, and we could put some cherries along the berm here.
Okay.
So the cherries down there, the soil's too wet and there's too much shade. So that's why they're not doing well. But if we put some that are available in this application, we could put some skirting the top of the hill so that you have the pink flowering cherries, and then you have the white flowering service berries in the swale where they like that wet area, they're tolerant of that. And it also creates food for birds. So,
In that mound you're gonna put them,
pardon it?
in that mound?
Yeah.
On that hill, yeah, there's a swale.
You know what's in that hill, that mound?
Well,
Huh? A lot of debris.
okay,
There's a lot of stuff that was dumped in there and covered over.
okay.
So I'd be careful,
Did you do
checking
that?
out. Huh?
Did you do that?
Yeah, I used to dump down there years ago.
So the service berries are very tolerant of high moisture areas, so that's why we're thinking of putting them like in a naturalistic kind of fashion, like some masses, like single ones and groupings along here, and then the sycamore down at the bottom where it's really wet. And there's also some other sycamores there, and it would kind of help triangulate that area to make it feel very kind of like nice and balanced. And then there's another area back in here that Mike was also hoping that we could maybe put some trees. So rather than put like, a few here or there, we thought like there's a real good opportunity to make something, a dramatic
Right in there.
show here.
Right.
To get people interested and use, different sizes of trees to make it a little more interesting.
Focus
And
point.
then, if we can get the full 25, then we can do some back here as well. And, we did 15 and they're all surviving and doing well, and we got them earlier than we expected. So we wanted to expand a little bit and, see what we can do, and we're confident that we can get them all in.
So all 25 are earmarked for Sutcliffe?
They would all be for Sutcliffe, because right now it's just easier logistically to do a big event and have it all in one location. We could, and they have to be planted within days of receiving.
Yeah.
So,
It's a
we
lot
have
to
some other
plan.
kind of opportunities to buy trees on a different kind of thing. We could maybe do in the future, like smaller plantings at other places that maybe are separate from the bare root program.
Right.
Do you have any issue with the locations as presented?
No, there's something, just worried about that mound.
Okay.
There's a lot of,
Yeah, will the trees survive?
So I guess for this
I'll
evening,
cut
what
it off
we're,
there.
what we're looking for this evening is authorization to move forward with the purchase of those trees at that discounted price, that we do have money in the budget to do so, and then they would be installed along the lines of what's presented in front of you this evening. If you could make a motion on that.
Make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
When's our next meeting?
First
18th?
Tuesday, and then we go off the top of my head.
next week? Because this week was.
President Leonard, I have no additional items for the agenda.
At the park, when we like look at the areas and like to kind of come up with this, like, so that we can get the application.
What happens when your
But we
husband
can also,
retires?
like, once we get the drawings.
You know
we can present it.
Okay,
He's fine.
all right, great.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is council member and mayor matters. Sewer authority update from Ms. Barton.
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you, Nita. The next is the parking task force update with Mr. Stokely and Mr. Tino.
Yeah, we had a meeting on August 28th, and we talked about, Brian from Pernoni talked about his map and the 10 areas in town that most have the need that we have to work on. So we talked about that, but the summer months are bad to get a calculation on cars and all because everybody's away. So I think we talked about September, October for him to do this.
Right, so what, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. We-
I would say for that, the update, what we're going to do for the evaluation, like you're saying, the summer is a difficult time, so the next step would be to evaluate the occupancy of the spots during the hours of 11 to 1 in the afternoon, obviously, and 6 to 8 over the course of the month of September. So we have the inventory is, if you don't mind, Bob, do you want to add?
Yeah, we talked about the importance of what's going to happen with nudies and when the contractors have no place to park. We talked a lot about that, and Ray has a lot of solutions to it, but we have to work it and tweak it, and we have to find some places for them to park. We talked about line painting around the avenues, which I think 6th Avenue really turned out great. And I like to do it on my 11th Avenue because you can save 3 or 4 parking spaces on them avenues.
Right.
Because people don't know how to
Another
park.
People-
update.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Please don't do it in
Go
my
ahead.
ward.
God, you can do your,
They don't want it.
So the inventory is complete as far for the commercial district, identifying the 957 spots. So these are updates for that. But what Bob and I are asking of council tonight is if you would consider a motion for the parking task force to evaluate the potential utilization of the Haynes and Salvati Park, to use that as a temporary parking relief while the construction is going on. So for construction vehicles, making that a location for them to park. Again, emphasis on temporary, but we need to just ask for a motion so that we can explore that.
but a temporary, that it goes back a park.
Yeah, with the understanding that it was a donation and that the intent of it was for recreational purposes,
Right.
just to relieve.
Right, I think what's important is what the task force is asking of council to see. The way the task force is set up is if they make a formal motion on an item, that has to come back to council for consideration and approval. So what they asked in their meeting was, as they were looking at alternative locations for parking during the construction, Haynes and Savati was a potential option. So they made a motion to take to council the request to allow administration and the task force to further evaluate whether it's even an option. So this is temporary, this is the way, I mean, there's a legal component to this as well, because however the park was donated or in some way given to the borough, so from a legal standpoint, we don't even know if we can do it. But we need
I was just
council,
gonna ask you that.
we need council's approval to even
Look
look
into it.
into it, because that's how the task force is set up. So all they're asking this evening is that you give the task force and administration the authorization to evaluate the potential of it even being an option, and then if any further action was going to be taken, it would again have to come back to you. But yes, the intent would be that it would go back to a recreational resource. I know that we have a director of recreation and an executive director of operations that are already looking at next steps for that park. So there's, multiple conversations, but what Bob and Karen are asking as the liaisons to that task force is just to start an evaluation.
I have one question. Did Mike, did anybody check into the Haynes family when they donated that land
That's
to
what
the
we're,
borough, what's in the deed that says, like, the Marywood Park House.
right.
If the
That's-
Marywood Park House is used for something else, it goes
Right.
back to the family.
That's what we're asking tonight. We're asking
Right.
full council to
To approve it.
approve administration and the task force to start that process if you want to.
Because the Haynes family's still around. They own the bar down there still.
Okay?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is the Marywood Park Commission update. Jane?
We had a meeting on August 5th at the Park House, but it was such a beautiful night, we ended up sitting on the steps and the bench in front of the Park House.
Nice.
And while we were there, we remarked on how wonderful it is that you look around the park in front of the Fellowship House, the community center. There was a Tai Chi class going on, and then we could look down to the playground and see numerous families playing there, other people just sitting and enjoying the beautiful setting. So when I hear about putting more shade trees in at Sutcliffe, I'm 100% behind that. I think this council has shown a vision for our residents and what will bring our community together, and it's definitely our parks. So I think that, that was just an aside. By revitalizing our parks, we're servicing our residents and making them aware of it's not just you come home from work and you stay in your house. You go out, meet your friends, meet your neighbors. So again, that was part of our council's vision when we started. Our meeting, we discussed how we are going to support the fundraising arm, which is the Friends of Country Parks initiative. So that's where we all decided we would be supportive of them.
The next item is an EAC update from Mayor Aronson.
Do you want my friends up there?
Oh, my God.
We
So let's do that. Go
ahead.
ahead.
So as Jane said, the Friends of Conshohocken Parks are the fundraising group that are looking at opportunities for donors, and we just finalized our corporate donor brochure, so we'll be getting ready to start reaching out to our corporate donors from the perspective of being able to support what Marywood's dream was for the community. And again, this group is not just for Marywood Park House. It is for monies for all of our Parks and Rec programs. We are going to also have a table at the Fun Fest where we'll be doing some raffle baskets to start generating some conversations about where we're going with it, and the idea that there's a few things that are on our priority for our centennial, which is next year, and the idea that if we can raise enough money to put a porch on Marywood Park House, and then to look at the community center. We talked about the HVAC. I think we decided that we were going to do that out of our budget, but what's the next thing? It could be the security, in the park, in the community center. So I think that we're blending the two groups well, and I think that it's exciting to know that we're going to start our fundraising push for the centennial event.
So just in a essence of time on behalf of the Friends of Country Park, so the way their meetings hit is we had this meeting tonight, and then they have their monthly meeting tomorrow night. There were a few initiatives that came out of the previous meeting. Tina already talked about the Fun Fest table and wanting to actually do like a raffle or bags. The way the bylaws of the Friends of Country Parks are written, that initiative of the Friends of Country Parks actually has to come back to council and for approval. So if you are so inclined this evening, if you would like to support that initiative of the Friends of Country Parks, you should make a motion so that Tina can bring it back to the Friends of Country Parks and let them know that they have approval to spend dollars in the nonprofit entity to utilize for that purpose.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. And then the other item for the Friends of Country Parks that you should just be aware of, the way the bylaws are written as well, is that the directors of the board, which right now are Antoinette and Bob Cayucci, Cindy King-Webb resigned, we just appointed Sarah Aronson. If they are looking to add additional members, they can make a formal recommendation, which then again needs to be approved by council. So Just so council is aware, the Friends of Country Parks have invited certain members of the community who will most likely, hopefully, be attending the meeting tomorrow night. So we can kind of recruit them to be part of the Friends of Country Parks. But that, if they are interested, then we'll have the Friends of Country Parks make a motion, and then that will come back to you again to formally appoint.
Okay.
So they're busy, which is a good thing.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes.
On that finance thing, it threw me again.
Okay.
Who's going to be responsible for the money that's collected in the fund? Who's going to be in charge of that?
The
So-
board,
Yeah.
The board, and who is the board again?
Bob
Cayucci?
Cayucci, Antoinette Coop, Sarah Aronson, and then I am the council representative. So I bring it back to us, and we as
Our council.
council have that other vote.
So what's the limit that they're allowed to spend without?
There's no limit. The way the bylaws are written, they actually, any dollars that are spent by or allocated out of Friends of Country Parks first need to be approved by Borough Council.
So you could give them, for example, a $2,000 marketing budget or something like that, they'd have some flexibility.
Right.
But otherwise, everything comes to you, it was set up that way.
And Bob, most of the money comes from donations.
I understand
And,
that.
yeah, and allocated for,
I seem to have a problem with when we get groups involved with donations and stuff like that. And then 5 years later, we find out that I'm not going to,
well, we set it up so that, say, Yaniv donated to Sutcliffe Park, it stays separate for that. They're all separate, so that that doesn't happen.
all right.
But
Okay.
still, if the Friends of Conshohocken Parks decided they wanted to take the amount of money that they have that's allocated for Sutcliffe Park, they would have to make a motion, and it would have to come back to council to approve the use of the dollars for that purpose. So Antoinette, Bob, and now Sarah cannot cut a check and hand it over without Borough Council approval. So that is how the bylaws are written
We don't have
purposely.
anybody in our, a second signature on that check, right?
It's a borough check.
It's a borough
It's a
check.
borough
Okay, okay. All right. I'm just asking.
You know, that's
But
good. You
it's
should
good to be
ask those
clear on
questions.
everything.
You should want those questions. I can recirculate the bylaws as well, so you can just read through them again. I actually just reread through them, so we can make sure that we're all operating the way we need to operate. So it's a great initiative. I hope that it is successful.
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
yeah.
Utilize that boathouse down there, that room on top. That's a great place to have a fundraiser. A cocktail party.
Mayor Aronson, EAC update?
So the EAC had a pretty lively conversation at the last meeting about the spotted lanternfly, which I can tell by the nods. You've all heard feedback. So what we're going to do is we're going to ramp up social media through the borough and through the EAC. We're going to release material specifically from the Penn State Extension. And I ordered pamphlets, 2 types of pamphlets from Penn State that we're going to pick up on Friday and have available here at Borough Hall and at the community center, so residents can pick up information. So as Ray explained to us, there's really no unified policy at the moment on what to do besides kill them.
Right.
So if you spray something, it could pollute and hurt the tree or whatever. So we're trying to be really careful with the kind of information we disseminate. But I think we're all pretty comfortable that the Penn State Extension's a very reputable source.
Right.
So look for that in the next few days, actually.
There's actually a Facebook group about that.
I saw that, yes. Yep.
Oh,
And all kinds of wacky.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy ideas,
Yeah.
but I just think it's
solutions, yeah.
entertaining.
Yep.
Einstein Hospital is inundated with them. It's awful.
Where did you see them again?
Einstein Hospital.
Oh,
I mean, you
I've
can't
only seen
even walk
2 at
in.
my house.
Oh, I've had them.
Well, on West Fourth, somebody had one of those trees of heaven,
Oh, that's their host. Yeah, that's awful.
so they've had a couple of trees that they haven't found.
Oh,
Jeez.
Would you like to do your next update?
Sure. So you received in your upload the update from the Dog Park Committee from the community event. So that's something that we'll hopefully continue to do to get the public involved with what the Dog Park Committee does. Their next event will be September 21st at Fun Fest, so you can look for them there. That's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else on council have anything? Everyone's good. Public comment?
Really?
Good evening, Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
Good evening, Stacy Ellum, 334 West 10th Avenue. The purchase of the new trees came up at the meeting tonight, something I hadn't heard about before. And 30 years ago, the borough gave out shade trees for free to residents. One of the residents on my block now has to take the tree down because it was the wrong tree for the environment. So I want to make sure that you're checking with arborists and things like that, make sure these are trees that are indigenous,
I think that's
that'll
what Tim, I
survive.
think that's what Tim is.
Okay,
Yes.
it's that'll all be
It's a-
checked out.
yeah,
I just
just
wanted
like-
to make sure you guys weren't gonna shell out thousands of dollars down the road to take them down when
Yeah,
they die.
yeah.
That's
No,
what
that's
Tim
what Tim
does for a
does,
living.
yeah.
Okay, that wasn't stated
No, it wasn't.
during the
Right.
meeting, so that's why, if that would have said, I wouldn't have gotten up. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
welcome.
Stace.
We actually have an ordinance that spells out what kind of trees.
Yes, we have a tree.
Are they the correct trees if we were giving out trees? Yeah, we're gonna have to pull that.
So a few years ago, I had situations where there were homes in the ward that for whatever reason, their trees had to be taken down or they came down, there was a problem, but they wanted them to be replaced. This was prior to you. I feel like the name was Adam. Yes, so we, did a walkthrough and literally on foot, we were going and it was borough manager,
Previous.
Whoever that was.
the three of us, and had made commitments to several of these homes that had been in this situation, which is why, when he was talking about these trees, I wanted to know they were earmarked, because I'm constantly, these commitments were made, and a lot of the people,
I think what we can, this opportunity, they didn't have an opportunity, they didn't have a chance in terms of timing, but
No,
I
that's-
think that
Next
you know,
time.
this is a cost-effective way to get trees into the borough, so what we can communicate to the EAC, the Shade Tree Commission portion of it, is an
Opportunity with this type of entity comes up again,
Right.
and we have, the timing is right, that we look to the areas for whatever the commitments that were made previously.
that would be
So when we do
great.
that, though, we have to make, the turnover in this town is so, a lot of turnover. So somebody buys a house and they got
Right.
a tree in front of their house.
Right.
Okay? And then you ask them to take care of the tree
I know.
because it's on their property.
Right.
And they say, I didn't put that tree there. I don't want that tree.
But they bought the property with it on there. It's their responsibility.
It doesn't, see, the problem is we put all these trees in business, okay? And half of them died, but we have to make them sign off and take the responsibility with these trees. Okay? If we're gonna plant a tree, they gotta sign off on it. Because it's really, I mean, it's a nuisance.
Okay.
Do the contractors have to get a tree list relief when they're building?
From us? No.
We should think about requiring that because there were a bunch of ugly cherry trees put in down the street from me.
And those
the
sweet gum
guy-
trees
and
are
the
bad
guy
too.
took
They're such
them all
trashy
down.
trees.
So there are no trees on this property.
Okay.
So we'll have to look into
We'll
what
look into
we
the
do for
concept of
trees. Okay. Anything? Anyone else for public comment? Meeting adjourned.